Hello dear students, welcome to the discussion of Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson lived between 1709 and 1784. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the criticism given by Dr. Johnson. Before that, we need to look into the age of Johnson because since we are going to study the lives of poets, we have to study the life of Dr. Johnson, who has laid down his own criticism. The 18th century is called the age of Johnson because of his dominant influence. The 17th century, dominated by reason, order, and restraint, controlled art and repressed emotion. There was no place for emotions in the 17th century, in the period of Dryden. Literature of this period reflects a conflict between reason and imagination. So that influence also there in the beginning of the 18th century, of course. Towards the late 18th century, the romantic spirit revived, preparing the ground for romanticism. See, Dr. Johnson lived between 1709 and 1784, which means beginning of the 18th century and towards the late 18th century. 1798, publication of lyrical ballads. So, romanticism has begun from there. Hagagi, age of Johnson is conflicting between or laid between romanticism as well as 17th century restoration period. Reason, period of reason. The age is transitional. So all the features are like some writers used to write by using reason, order, and repressed emotions. Some other writers like Blank. Other writers used to use romanticism, ideas of imagination, and others. So the age was transitional. ಆ ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಈ ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಒಂದೊಂದೇ ಬದಲಾಗುತ್ತಿರುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕಾಲ ಅದು. ದ ಏಜ್ ಈಸ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಷನಲ್, ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದಿ ಕೋ ಎಕ್ಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕಲ್ ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಂಟ್, ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ನಿಯೋ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕಲ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್, and romantic imagination. It is an age of compromise where tradition overlaps with new outlooks. Right? So neoclassical ideas were there, imagination, romanticism ideas are also there. So this is the age of compromise. Johnson as a critic. How did he work as a critic at that time? Johnson eminently represents the persistence of classical dogma. He sticks to classical rules, represents and persistence of classical tradition, and is called the spokesman of classical criticism. Even though the age was transitional, even though both the features coexist at the time, he sticks to classical criticism. His method is described as doctrinal classicism. What do we call his method of criticism? Doctrinal criticism. Showing respect for rules, order, and discipline. Just like classical writers. He prefers classical rules. Rules, order, and discipline. He followed tradition, yet remained independent. He is not at all fully dependent on classical ideas, yet he remained independent and fearless in judgment. His criticism gained strength from his personality, wit, common sense, and vigorous style. Vigorous, courageous style. He was very bold in judgment. He shapes the critical thought of the 18th century. With all these features, he shaped the critical analysis or thought at that time. So this is Johnson age. Johnson as a critic, he has all these features. Major works in criticism by Dr. Johnson. So which are those major works? Preface to the Dictionary of the English Language. Please look into the dates. Intentionally I haven't mentioned the dates here because you have to look into the dates so that you can remember. Preface to the Dictionary of the English Language. This is also one of the critical work. Preface to Shakespeare, that we are going to analyze in detail, which is very important. Lives of the poets also important. Essays and articles in the Rambler, the Idler and the Adventurer. So these are the main critical works by Dr. Johnson. Let's see. First one, Lives of the Poets, written in 1781. Dr. Johnson is a pioneering work, pioneer in the field of biographical criticism. Through biographies of various writers, he is presenting, analysis or criticism which seeks to evaluate the work of a writer in the light of the facts of their lives. ಸೊ ಒಬ್ಬ ರೈಟರ್ನ ಜೀವನವನ್ನು ಬರೀತಾ ಅದರ ಮೂಲಕ ಅವರ ಬರವಣಿಗೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅನಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯಾದ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸಿಸಮ್ ಇದೇ ಮೊದಲ ಬಾರಿಗೆ ಬರೆದಿದ್ಯಾರಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಜಾನ್ಸನ್. ಓಕೆ, ವರ್ಕ್ ಇನ್ ಬಯೋಗ್ರಫಿಕಲ್ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸಿಸಮ್, ಬ್ಲೆಂಡೆಡ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ವಿತ್ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಇವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಯೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ವರ್ಕ್ಸ್. So Lives of Poets, this is a collection of 52 critical prefaces to poets, which means there are 52 characters, 52 poets are there, written as introductions to their works. ಸೊ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಪೋಯೆಟ್ನ ಬಯೋಗ್ರಫಿಗೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪ್ರೀಫೇಸನ್ನು ಬರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಕ್ he has worked upon criticism. He considered truth, that to uncompromising truth, ಏನೇ ಆಗಲಿ ನಿಜಾನೇ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ದ ಏಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಬಯೋಗ್ರಫಿ. Attempt to reintroduce sincerity into literature. Rejected artificiality, bombastic language, appreciating the writers and their writings simply. So he rejected that. Valued truthfulness. ಅದು ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದೇ ಆಗಿರಲಿ ಕೆಟ್ಟದ್ದೇ ಆಗಿರಲಿ, ಕವಿಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಬರಹಗಾರನಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತಹ ನಿಜವನ್ನೇ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಪಡಿಸುವಂಥದ್ದು ಅವನ ಏಮ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು ಥ್ರೂ ದಿಸ್ ಲೈವ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪೋಯೆಟ್ಸ್. Connect poetry with life and moral teaching. Literature should guide, conduct and reflect human experiences. That is what he says. He neither lauds nor condemns, but displays the minute details of the everyday life of his subject. Subject andre any poet in his works, so that his readers may see the whole of him, whole of the poet's life or his works, and know the full truth about him, and thus appreciate his works better. By knowing the personal life of the poets, readers are going to analyze or appreciate their works. That is what his intention. Uncompromising truth is there. The aim of biography is avoided false praise or exaggeration. I told you. He neither lauds nor condemns, but displays the minute details. ಈ ಕಡೆ ಹೊಗಳ್ತಾನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಈ ಕಡೆ ತೆಗಳ್ತಾನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಏನಿದೆಯೋ ಅದನ್ನು ಇದ್ದ ಹಾಗೆ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಪಡಿಸುವಂಥದ್ದು. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಹಿ ಡಿಡ್ ಇನ್ ಲೈವ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಪೋಯೆಟ್ಸ್. Here he focuses on linguistic achievements of these poets, 52 poets. He studied style, diction, and expression of poets, various poets. But in its 3 volumes, see, Lives of the Poets is written in 3 volumes. 3 volumes. Okay. In all these 3 volumes, Johnson gives us biographical and critical studies of all the 52 poets. But of all these, only 6 are considered first rate important works. ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಮಿಲ್ಟನ್, ಡ್ರೈಡನ್, ಅಲೆಕ್ಸಾಂಡರ್ ಪೋಪ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿರುವಂಥ 52 ಕವಿಗಳ ಜೀವನ ಚರಿತ್ರೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇವಲ 6 ಮಾತ್ರ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ರೇಟ್ ಬಯೋಗ್ರಫೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಮಿಲ್ಟನ್, ಡ್ರೈಡನ್, ಪೋಪ್ ಆರ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. So his Lives of Poets, this critical work is marred by prejudices and personal dogmatism. Judgments often colored by personal taste and moral bias. So his his personal interpretation is there. Criticism was often colored by his personal beliefs, tastes, and rigid opinions, strict opinions, rather than being based solely on objective. So it seems Lives of the Poets, it seems like a subjective analysis of any poet, of 52 poets. So this is marred by personal dogmatism and prejudices of Dr. Johnson. It led to skewed or unfair evaluation of other poets' work, isn't it? If we have personal intentions or opinions based, on any work of art, it projects a different feature. So if we keep that work of art objectively and looking on its features, then it gives different taste, right? So this is a minus point, it seems. No imagination or ear for music. Means what? Music and imagination are the most essential qualities of poetry that we have discussed in Aristotle irbodu, what to say, ಎನಿ ರೊಮ್ಯಾಂಟಿಕ್ ಪೋಯೆಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಡ್ರೈಡನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಡ್ರೈಡನ್ ಡಿಫೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ರೈಮ್, ರೊಮ್ಯಾಂಟಿಕ್ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಡಿಫೆಂಡ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಪೋಯೆಟ್ರಿಗೆ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಗುಣಗಳೇನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದರೆ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನೇಷನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ತುಂಬ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟು. ಆದರೆ ವಿ ಸಿ ಇನ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ marred by prejudices and personal dogmatism. So it doesn't have any ear for music and no imagination. Johnson had no ear and he had no imagination. Okay, insensitive to poetic imagination and musical qualities of verse. ಸೊ ಅವುಗಳನ್ನು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅವನು ಅದನ್ನು ಮೈನಸ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು ಕೂಡ ಇದೆ. And he criticized Milton's Lycidas. How? He says that where there is leisure for fiction, there is little grief. Also says passion plucks no berries. He criticized also Comus, John Donne and Gray. 6 first rate: Milton, Dryden, Pope, Donne and Gray. He criticized Milton's Lycidas. He praised Milton's Paradise Lost for its grandeur and sublimity. The idea, the concept of sublime given by Longinus. Lycidas is well known, but he found it as easy, vulgar, and therefore disgusting. And about Comus, he remarks, they are harsh in their diction and not very musical in their numbers. He says, the poet's first task is to find morality, and praises Milton in this respect, means finding morality in this respect, and finds that moral is an essential part of his poem. Moreover, this moral has been conveyed in an attractive and surprising narrative. And he praised Paradise Lost for that on all these counts: morality, attractive, surprising narrative. Dr. Johnson analyzes the faults of the epic also. Next, Johnson's view of poetry. He defined poetry as the art of uniting pleasure with truth by calling imagination to the help of reason. See it as everything. Uniting pleasure means delight with truth. Uncompromising truth is also there. And calling imagination is also there, to the help of reason. Where did he say this quotation? In his Life of Milton. Okay, he has written 52 biographies or lives of poets, right? So among them, in the Life of Milton, he defines poetry as thus. According to him, the poet is a creator by virtue of his inventive and imaginative powers, because of his inventive creativity and also conceptualizing power. Okay, inventive and imaginative powers, and the evidence of that creative ability is to be found in the poem's imagery. ಸೊ ಪೋಯೆಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡಬಹುದು. ಪೋಯೆಟ್ಸ್ನ ಒಂದು ಎಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ಇನ್ವೆಂಟಿವ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನೇಟಿವ್ ಪವರ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಇವೆರಡರ ಸಮ್ಮಿಲನವನ್ನು, ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿವಿಟಿಯನ್ನು, ಆ ಪೋಯೆಟ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿವ್ ಎಬಿಲಿಟಿಯನ್ನು ನಾವೆಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣ್ಬೋದು? ಪೋಯಮಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣಬಹುದು. ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಹಿಮ್, poetry must give pleasure. It should contain truth and serve life and morality. Poetry must give pleasure. It must be, delighting. Should contain truth and serve life and morality. The purpose, it serves the purpose of life. He believed poetry should be natural, simple, and close to daily speech. He disliked blank words, like Dryden does. Even Dryden, did not like blank words. He preferred rhyme, and preferred rhyme for its melody and discipline. Even Dr. Johnson preferred rhyme. Okay, don't get confused between Dr. Johnson and Dryden. Both are preferring rhyme only. They reject blank words. Here Dr. Johnson preferred rhyme for its melody and discipline, because he wants discipline in writing. He opposed excessive ornament, myth, and forced imagination in poetry. ಅಯ್ಯೋ, ಬೇಕಾದದ್ದು ಬೇಡವಾದದ್ದು, ನಾನು ತುಂಬ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕಲ್ ವರ್ಕನ್ನು ಬರಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಏನೇನು ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೋ, ಫಿಗರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಪೀಚ್ ಇರುತ್ತೋ, ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದು ಪೋಯಿಟ್ರಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ತುಂಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೆಸೆಸರಿ. ಎಕ್ಸೆಸಿವ್ ಆರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್, ಮಿತ್. ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ ದೇರ್? ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ಆ್ಯಡ್. Forced imagination in poetry becomes artificial. It should be natural. It express according to him, the poetry should express natural sentiment in a language dignified indeed, but not too remote from the speech of daily life. It should be dignified, of course. ಹಾಗಂತ ದಿನನಿತ್ಯದ ಜೀವನದಿಂದ ತುಂಬ ದೂರಕ್ಕೆ ಇರಬಾರ್ದು ಆ ಭಾಷೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಬರೆಯುವಂಥ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಪೊಯೆಟ್ರಿನ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಅದು ತುಂಬ ಚೀಪ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಪೊಯೆಟ್ರಿದೇ ಆದಂಥ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ತುಂಬ ಹೈಲಿ ಏನೋ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜನ್ನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬರೆದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನ ಅದು ತಲುಪಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ಸೆಂಟಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್. ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಡಿಗ್ನಿಫೈಡ್ but not too remote from the speech of daily life. The use of too many new words, that is what? Excessive ornament. Too many new words destroy the intimacy and confidence of the relation between writer and reader. Reader can understand, oh, this is a new writer's work, so he tries to make it more superior. By making it more superior, he makes this poem ridiculous. Like that, a reader can understand. It destroys the relation between writer and the reader. Poetry was to be prepared to prose only for the addition of pleasure, which come from words, the pleasure of melody and pattern. He prefers melody and discipline. Pattern means discipline. Even as I told, Johnson held rhyme, and he considered it as essential for poetry. Johnson permits the use of blank verse to poets. Also he permits to use of blank verse to poets. Yarige? Who would describe wild landscapes, or indulge in unfettered imagination, or express conceptions of superhuman majesty in unusual and gorgeous language. Milton, Thomson and Young may use it, but not other lesser poets. ಅವರಿಗಿಂತ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಇರುವಂಥ ಪೊಯೆಟ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. So, according to Dr. Johnson, blank verse is to be avoided. Okay, should avoid. For it may betray feeble minds into all sorts of excesses. So, he avoids blank verse. He prefers rhyme. Poet as creator with imaginative powers. I discussed this. Imagery is evidence of poetic creativity. Right? It should follow the natural sentiments in a language with a dignified language. And it includes the imagery from the daily life. Means that must be a creativity of a writer or a poet. He believed in the moral purpose of literature, saying that moral is an essential part of poetry, which is very much important. Then he defends rhyme against blank verse. He says blank verse is verse only to the eyes, too close to prose. Blank verse is nothing but prose. It is too close to prose. He defends rhyme against blank verse. We have discussed about this line. So Johnson's passion for sincerity and reality explains his dislike for blank verse. So ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿನ್ಸಿಯಾರಿಟಿನೂ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ರಿಯಾಲಿಟಿನೂ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಆದರೆ ಬ್ಲ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ವರ್ಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಅವೇ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಟ್, ವಿಚ್ ಹಿ ರಿಗಾರ್ಡೆಡ್ ಆಸ್ ವರ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಟು ದ ಐಸ್. ಸೊ ಕಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಚಂದ ಕಾಣುವಂಥದ್ದು ಯಾವುದು? ಬ್ಲ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ವರ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಪೋಯೆಟ್ರಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿರಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ಪ್ರಕಾರ, ಪೋಯೆಟ್ರಿ ಶುಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ natural sentiments in a language. So that is evident in rhyme. So according to him, natural language sets in rhyme. So he prefers rhyme. Poetry valued for melody and pattern. Rhyme is essential in poetry. It adds pleasure and emphasis also. Blank verse may lead to carelessness and excess. Then we have discussed about lives of poets. Now it is preface to Shakespeare, written in 1765. Shakespeare is the poet of nature who represents life and human manners with truth. He says, Shakespeare gives a just representation of human nature. He is true to nature. He represents what is there in the nature, what is there in the society. He characterizes naturally. His characters are the faithful representations of the whole humanity. They are universal, but they are individual also. They are universal as well as individual. ಶೇಕ್ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್ನ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಪಾತ್ರವನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕಿಂಗ್ ಲಿಯರ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಕಿಂಗ್ ಲಿಯರನ್ನು ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಆಸ್ ಎನ್ ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್. ಅತಿಯಾದ ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಇಟ್ಟು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ತನ್ನ ಆಸ್ತಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬರ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಕಾರ್ಡಿಲಿಯ ಕೊನೆ ಮಗಳನ್ನ ದೇಶದಿಂದ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಮದುವೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಆ ಮಗಳೇ ಇವನಿಗೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಕಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಅತಿಯಾದ ನಂಬಿಕೆ, ತನ್ನನ್ನೇ ತಾನು ಮೋಸ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಪ್ರೈಡ್. ಸೊ ಈ ಥರದ ಗುಣಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಆ ಗುಣಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ನಾವಾಗಿರಬಾರ್ದು ಅನ್ನೋ, ಕಿಂಗ್ ಲಿಯರನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ನಾವಾಗಿರಬಾರ್ದು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ರಿಯಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಲ್. As King Lear also we studied. And not exaggerated heroes. We don't have, Shakespeare doesn't have any exaggerated heroes in his plays. They are being compared to the ordinary human beings. They are real human beings. I can compare with any one of the characters. I can relate. He says, Johnson says, characters are human, not heroic, universal yet individual. Please do remember these quotations. This is from Preface to Shakespeare, said by Dr. Johnson. They are also true to type, to the age, to sex or profession to which they belong. ಅವರು ಯಾವ ಸೊಸೈಟಿಯ ಯಾವ ಸೆಕ್ಷನಿಗೆ ಸೇರಿರ್ತಾರೋ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಸೇರಿರ್ತಾರೋ, ಯಾವ ಜೆಂಡರ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೋ, ಯಾವ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕ ಹಾಗೆ ಆ ಕಥೆಯ ಪಾತ್ರಗಳು ನಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತವೆ. ದೇರ್ ಈಸ್ ನೋ ಬೊಂಬಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಇನ್ ಇಟ್. ಸೊ ಹಿ ಸೇಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಟ್ರೂ ಟು ಟೈಪ್. His plays are a storehouse of practical wisdom. His plays are a just representation of human nature. He is also seen in the fact that love is not all. Love is only one of the many passions. As his plays mirror life, practical wisdom. Storehouse of practical wisdom means he has all the kinds of characters and no single passion is there like love. All his plays are not about only love. They represent other passions as well. His characters are not exaggerated. Not exaggerated. He has no heroes but only human beings. This characteristics of his plays increase our knowledge of human nature. Human nature ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಬ್ಬ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಈ ರೀತಿನೋ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ. Othello, the king, Othello, the prince, Othello. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾಮ್ಲೆಟ್, ಹ್ಯಾಮ್ಲೆಟ್ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಷಣಾರ್ಧದಲ್ಲಿ ತನ್ನ ನಿರ್ಧಾರವನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡು ಡೆಸ್ಡಿಮೋನನ್ನು ಸಾಯಿಸಿಬಿಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಒಥೆಲ್ಲೋ ಕೀಪ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ procrastinating his decision to take revenge for the death of his father. ಸೊ ಈ ಮನುಷ್ಯನ ಏನೇನೆಲ್ಲ ಗುಣಗಳಿದವೋ ಅದೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ಕೂಡ ತನ್ನ ಕಥೆಗಳ ಪಾತ್ರಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ಶೇಕ್ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ we come to understand it increases our knowledge of human nature. Now he is defending Shakespeare for using tragic comedy. How Dr. Johnson defends Shakespeare's mixture of tragedy and comedy, saying that life itself is a mixture of joy and sorrow. So why not tragic comedy in play, in writing? It is his writings are they are true to life. Joy and sorrow are mingled. ಸೊ ಇಡೀ ಜೀವನವೇ ಒಂದು ಸುಖ ದುಃಖಗಳ ಸಮ್ಮಿಲನ ಆಗಿರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಬರವಣಿಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾಕದಿರಬಾರ್ದು? In the use of tragic comedy, of course, Shakespeare is true to nature. He is following this mixture of tragedy and comedy. In real life also there is a mingling of the good and evil, joys and sorrows, tears and smiles. And so in mixing tragedy and comedy, Shakespeare merely holds a mirror to nature. Just he is representing the nature. Tragic comedy is therefore nearer to life than either form alone. Means it is not only near to tragedy, or it is not only near to comedy or pleasure. It is a combination, nearer to life. Combines instructions means morality from tragedy with pleasure, delight from comedy. So it is a well mixed natural life. Tragic comedy is nearer to life than pure tragedy or comedy. So this is what it says. He says, mixture does not weaken effect. Of course, by mixing tragedy and comedy, Shakespeare's plays don't become weak. Mixture does not weaken its effect, the play's effect. The interchange of the serious and the gay. Serious means tragedy and the gay means happiness or delight or pleasure or comedy, does not interrupt the progress of the passions within the play. It means it does not result in any weakening of effects. Only by including Tempest, for example, it has serious serious action also there. Comedy is also there, tragic comedy. It achieves its intention. So in between it is showing comedy also that relieves readers or audience. So mixture doesn't weaken the play. It should be remembered that all pleasure consists in variety. ವೆರೈಟಿ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಪ್ಲೆಷರ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಡಿಲೈಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಟ್ರಾಜಿಕ್ ಕಾಮಿಡಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫೈ ಅ ಗ್ರೇಟರ್ ವೆರೈಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಟೇಸ್ಟ್. ಒಬ್ರಿಗೆ ಟ್ರಾಜಿಡಿ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಒಬ್ರಿಗೆ ಕಾಮಿಡಿ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ಟ್ರಾಜಿಕ್ ಕಾಮಿಡಿ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ವೆರೈಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಟೇಸ್ಟ್. ಓಕೆ, like this it defends Shakespeare by for its using tragic comedy, and he defends Shakespeare for his rejection of three unities. Shakespeare didn't follow three unities, classical unities. Dr. Johnson rejects these strict unities of time and place. Like Shakespeare, he also rejects time and place. He is not rejecting the unity of action. Please observe that he is rejecting unities of time and place, arguing that only unity of action is necessary. Why others? Okay, unity of action is maintained. Here, in Shakespeare's works or in his plays, unity of action is maintained. There is a beginning, there is a logical middle, there is a logical end. Logical flow is there. Then why are you objecting for not using three unities? Anyways, it is delighting, it is giving instructions as well, and it maintains the unity of action. So all are there in Shakespeare's plays except time and place. Sometimes play takes in Venice, sometimes play takes in Paris. So a changing of places, the feature of changing places is there in Shakespeare's plays. So he recommends only a unity of action. The theatre is not reality. To show the reality, theatre itself is not reality, right? Just we are mirroring the society there. And imagination can supply gaps. Okay, so for example, a drama is taking place in London for some time. After some time, it takes place in sometimes in other places. For example, Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. Part of the play takes place in Venice. Part of the play takes place in Belmont. So, to fill that gap, imagination helps. Readers or audience will imagine. Now characters are in Venice, now characters are in Belmont. Accordingly, actions are going on. So, what is there? What's wrong with this gap? They can imagine. Theater is not real to stick all the actions within a day or 24 hours or within a place, in one place. No need to follow unities of time and place. Strict rules restrict variety and naturalness. He promotes strict rules, restrict variety and naturalness. Then he talks about merits of Shakespeare. That we have discussed so far are the merits of Shakespeare. What are they? True to nature and faithful representation of human passions and principles. He presents the society as it is. He holds the mirror to the society and brings the character from it, takes characters from it. Wide variety of characters drawn from every rank of life. ರಾಜನಂದ ಹಿಡಿದು ಕೆಳಮಟ್ಟದ ಸೊಸೈಟಿವರೆಗೂ ಎಲ್ಲ ರೀತಿಯ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಶೇಕ್ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್ ಕಥೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. ಲೈಕ್ ಚಾಸರ್, ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ವಿಸ್ಡಮ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ಡ್ ಥ್ರೂ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಲೈಫ್. ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎಂಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ಕಾಮಿಕ್ ಜೀನಿಯಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್. ಅಂಡ್ he says, Dr. Johnson talks about faults of his tragedies, faults of Shakespeare's tragedy. He says comedy came natural to Shakespeare. Comedy came natural to him and not tragedy. So, he prefers Shakespeare's comedy rather than tragedy. ಶೇಕ್ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್ಗೆ ಕಾಮಿಡಿಗಳು ಎಷ್ಟು ಸುಲಲಿತವಾಗಿ ಬರವಣಿಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿದೆಯೋ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಸುಲಲಿತವಾಗಿ ಟ್ರಾಜಿಡಿ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಜಾನ್ಸನ್ ಅವರ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯ. He says in tragedy, he writes with a great appearance of toil and study what is written at last with little felicity. But in comic scenes, he seems to produce without labor. ಕಷ್ಟ ಇಲ್ದೇನೆ ಬರ್ದಿದ್ದಾನೆ. What no labor can improve. So he prefers Shakespeare's comedies. His comic scenes are natural and therefore durable. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಾಲಕ್ಕೂ ಕೂಡ. The language of his comic scenes is the language of real life. That is true. Not tragedy. ಟ್ರಾಜಿಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬ ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟು ಲೈಕ್ he put more effort in that. Produce, with so much of toil, so much of work. But not in comedy, it doesn't work like that. Okay, just for information, I added here. I think I didn't add that point. Then, effective blending of tragedy and comedy. He effectively blends both. That is good, according to Dr. Johnson. Emotional range, moving easily from tenderness to terror. Like Lady Macbeth, for example. From humor to solemnity. Like this, he praises Shakespeare for these, points. And also he talks about demerits. ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸಿಸಮ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್? ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸಿಸಮ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಕೇವಲ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಗುಣಗಳನ್ನು ಅಥವಾ ಕೇವಲ ಕೆಟ್ಟ ಗುಣಗಳನ್ನು ಹೇಳುವಂಥದ್ದಲ್ಲ. ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸೈಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು ಅಂದರೆ ಎರಡೂ ರೀತಿಯಾದದನ್ನು ಹೇಳಬೇಕು. ಮೈನಸ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸಿಸಮ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್. According to him, Shakespeare also has some serious faults. Serious enough to obscure his many excellences. ಸೊ ಅವನ ಒಂದು ಅಚೀವ್ಮೆಂಟನ್ನೇ ಕತ್ತಲೆಗೆ ದೂಡುವಷ್ಟು ಫಾಲ್ಟ್ಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. He says, sometimes he sacrifices virtue to convince, seeking to please rather than instruct. Sometimes in ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪ್ಲೇನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ವರ್ಚುವನ್ನೇ ಬಿಟ್ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾನೆ ಶೇಕ್ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್. ಓನ್ಲಿ ಟು ಕನ್ವಿನ್ಸ್, ಸೀಕಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಪ್ಲೀಸ್. ಸೊ ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸನ್ನು ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ, ರಾದರ್ ದ್ಯಾನ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ದೆಮ್ ಮೊರಾಲಿಟಿ. ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಫನ್ ಲೂಸ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಟೆಡ್. ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಹಿಮ್, ಹಿಸ್ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಲೂಸ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಡ್. Dr. Johnson said. His plays contains many anachronisms, such as the clock in Julius Caesar. Means faults of chronology. Anachronisms and faults of chronology is there. He didn't mind that. Jokes can be coarse, sometimes boring, gross, and licentious. Narration may be pompous and verbose, bombastic. ಅದನ್ನು ಆರ್ನಮೆಂಟೈಸೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಹೋಗಿ 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 ಇನ್ನು ಅದು ಲೈಕ್ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಬರ್ದಿರೋವಂಥದ್ದು ಕೂಡ ಇದೆ. ಫೇಲ್ಸ್ ಟು ಸಸ್ಟೈನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಆಲ್ ಹಿಸ್ ವರ್ಕ್ಸ್. We can see more, great tragedies or great comedies. Not all his 37 plays are great. 37 plays kuda great alla. Hagagi, he fails to sustain that excellence in all his works. Too fond of quibbles and puns, which weaken serious situations. So these are the demerits of Shakespeare given by Dr. Johnson. Now, let's talk about merits of Johnson's criticism. How Dr. Johnson has criticized or analyzed, works of art, poetry or plays, whatever. His classicism was sane and liberal, combining discipline with flexibility. Discipline is also there, and for some To some extent, he makes it flexible. He appealed to reason, human manners, and experience. He was concerned more with human nature than with external nature. His scholarship was sound based on wide reading. He was an intellectual person and a deep understanding of the human heart. That is why he is praising Shakespeare for using characters from the natural world. His opinions were grounded in solid study, even when occasionally biased. So, no, occasionally biased idru kuda opinions were grounded in solid study. He was independent and impartial. ಪಾರ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವನು ಬಯಾಸ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ನಾಟ್ ಎನ್ಸ್ಲೇವ್ಡ್ ಟು ಅಥಾರಿಟಿ ಆರ್ ಕನ್ವೆನ್ಷನ್. ಹಿ ಡಿಂಟ್ ಎನ್ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಟು ಎನಿ ಅಥಾರಿಟಿ. ಯಾವ ರಾಜ ರಾಣಿ ಅಧಿಕಾರ ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೂ ಕೂಡ ಎನ್ಸ್ಲೇವ್ ಆಗದೆ ತನಗೆ ಏನು ಒಪಿನಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನು ಬೋಲ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿ ತನ್ನ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸಿಸಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾಟ್ ಟು ಕನ್ವೆನ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಬಿಲಾಂಗ್ಸ್ ಟು ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಸಿಸಮ್, ಹಿ ಬಿಲಾಂಗ್ಸ್ ಟು ನಿಯೋ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಸಿಸಮ್. ಸೊ ಅವೆಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಆನ್ ಆಗದೇನೆ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಏನು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ ಬರಿತಾ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಮೆರಿಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಜಾನ್ಸನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸಿಸಮ್. And also, I am supposed to talk about Johnson's defense of the unities. That we have discussed already. He shows no regard for the three unities that discussed in preface to Shakespeare. He didn't give much importance to, unity of place and unity of time. But unity of action is important according to him. He says these unities have given more trouble to the poet than pleasure to the audience. ಸೊ ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸಿಗೆ ಪ್ಲೆಷರ್ ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ರೈಟರಿಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಯೂನಿಟೀಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಬಂದಾಗ. ವೆನ್ ಎ ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಟರ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಅಲೆಕ್ಸಾಂಡ್ರಿಯಾ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದಿ ಆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಆಂಟನಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯೋಪಾಟ್ರಾ, ಈ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಶ್ಯೂರ್ಲಿ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಸಚ್ ಮೋರ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಆಂಟನಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯೋಪಾಟ್ರಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಂಟನಿ ಅಲೆಕ್ಸಾಂಡ್ರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಕ್ಲಿಯೋಪಾಟ್ರಾ ಈಜಿಪ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾಳೆ ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ ಆಫ್ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ unity of place? What is the need? When a spectator, drama is a delusion and delusion has no limits. It is an imagination, right? The spectators know the stage is a stage. Stage is not at all reality. So the actors are actors. They are not the real characters. There is no absurdity in showing different actions at different places. ಸೊ ಒಂದೇ ಸ್ಟೇಜಲ್ಲಿ 4 ಊರುಗಳನ್ನ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಬಿಡೋದು. ಒಂದು ಮೈಸೂರು, ಒಂದು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು, ಒಂದು ಶ್ರೀರಂಗಪಟ್ಟಣ, ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಕತ್ತಾ, ಒಂದು ಡೆಲ್ಲಿ, ಒಂದು ಇನ್ನೊಂದೇನೋ ಶ್ರೀನಗರ. ಓಕೆ, ಲೈಕ್ ದಿಸ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ದ ಹೋಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ by standing in that particular place and representing that respective place, right? So it is delusion and it can be shown, it can be imagined. And when it comes to unity of time, he says drama imitates successive actions, ಮುಂದೆ ಬರುವಂತಹ actions ಅನ್ನ, and just as they may be represented at successive places also, so they may be represented at present different period separated by several years. The only condition is that the events so represented should be connected with each other with nothing but time intervening between them. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ಯಾಪ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇನ್ ಶಾರ್ಟ್, he says the unities are not essential to drama according to Dr. Johnson. Their violation often results in variety and instruction. Like Dryden says, it leads to variety. Even Dryden accept that. The rules may be against Johnson, but he justifies Shakespeare on grounds of nearness to life and nature. So, what Shakespeare has done in his works, it is good. Though he talks about his demerits, he appreciates Shakespeare's works. So that's all about Dr. Johnson. I hope you understood.